Oh, we're really out of luck.
Okay, I think we're ready to go with the Public Works and Protective Services Committee meeting. Is there any additions or amendments to the agenda, which has the addition of a pink? All right, we'll move on to public participation.
I think we have to adopt the agenda amended with the pink.
Okay, I'll take a motion to, thank you, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? All right, now public participation.
Gary Smurfett, Gilbert. I'm looking at agenda item 7B, the agreement for the facility use. And it's a pretty comprehensive agreement, and some of the things in it just cause me concern, but I brought it right down to 4.1D as an example of my concerns. And before someone serves food or beverages, I'll give you a chance to get there. It's on page 13 of the package. They're obliged to consult the district to determine specific menu items, service levels, and pricing expectations. And then the district reserves the right to amend menu options and prices. I'm just thinking, we really want to tell people that they can't serve cabbage rolls, but they can serve pigs in the blanket, and how much we should charge for those things? I think perhaps this agreement is a very detailed one that comes from a large organization, and we really don't want to burden our staff or council deciding things like what should be on the menus when people apply for a permit. Perhaps, you might want to ask for a closer look at it to make it more Metchosin friendly. Thank you very much.
Thanks, so we'll be commenting on that further down.
Sarah Anthony, 4290 Metchosin Road. This isn't something that's on the agenda, but it was something that was talked about in the last meeting. I was just thinking a bit about raising the speed limit issue, lowering the speed limit, I should say. I don't think we would raise the speed limit. But I guess what's kind of bugging me about it was thinking about who that would affect the most. And I think that would really be especially working people, and especially working people with kids, who have to kind of get from one place to another. I mean, of course, speeding is definitely a big issue in Metchosin. Like, we live on Metchosin Road, and that doesn't make any sense on public record. Sorry, my sound effects. But it is crazy. I mean, we have the sign right outside our place, that the 40 sign, and I hope it helps a little bit, because it is crazy, and we do have some people who just drive nuts out here. But I think, like, the speed limit, I believe, is 50, and outside of the downtown core. And I think for people getting into town, like, that is, like, going any lower than that would be really hard on people who have to be somewhere. I mean, like, me and Eric are lucky we work from home, but not everybody has that. And a lot of people do have to get somewhere, and it can be really hard to manage in the morning. So it's just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa B., Kangaroo Road. I actually don't know which committee is appropriate to address. Is it appropriate to talk about the Buckingham Road at this committee?
That would have been the planning.
Would it have? Okay. I was afraid I missed my opportunity. I thought that was not the right one. So, okay. That's fine.
But I think what do you think, Council? Could we go ahead with this one? Sure,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just take 1 minute of your time, which is I'd like to reiterate again my support for the idea of piped water at the Buckingham Road. There's very, very strong encouragement for that. and also to continue to encourage the council to approve no more than 20 lots. I think it's already a great benefit to the developer to have 20 lots. It's been pointed out to me that at 100 acres, if they were taking the 5-acre option, they wouldn't have gotten 20 lots anyways, because you have to have roadways and this and that. So 20 lots is already, in fact, a benefit to them by going to the 2-acre lot proposition. So I would hope that you would keep it at 20 lots and maintain at least a little bit of our rural feeling here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. I'd just like to add to what Sarah said. Unfortunately, speed limits only affect poor people, because if you're a CEO making $600 an hour, well, you going through a speed or a school zone, you know, it's, if you save a minute a day at $600 an hour, it's going to take you a lot of speeding tickets before your time saved is going to make up the money spent. And on the inverse, when you slow people down getting from their in-town job to, say, the far end of Kangaroo Road, what you're doing is you're taking away their family time. You're taking away the precious hours that they have by saying you need to drive slower, and we don't mind that you're losing those minutes to spend with your kids.
Thank you. Right, anyone else for public participation? Right, we'll move on then. I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting on April 17th.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Okay. Right, Councillors update. In April, Councillor Gray and I spent 2 very informative hours learning the workings of the incident command system on the occasion of an oil spill response exercise organized by the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation. So anyway, it was quite amazing actually. The exercise is extremely complex. People may have noticed all the boats out in the water off Royal Roads, because it was quite a mind-boggling experience, really. They seem to deal with pretty much every aspect possible of responding to a spill in our waters. So I know Councillor Gray is going to have more on this at another occasion. Anyway, it was really worthwhile. And last week, Chief Dunlop coordinated a regular stakeholders meeting to discuss readiness for emergency situations such as heat domes and wildfires. And the meeting provided a really great opportunity to meet people from all facets of the community. It's a very interesting meeting, getting input from all over. I mean, Petter Bay and Pearson College and Wild Ark and community groups, and it was just it was really interesting. And as far as the fire department, residents are encouraged to call to book a brief home visit for a pre-fire plan. The plan will provide information on access to properties in case of emergencies. The maps will be on a computer in the fire trucks and show responders any difficulty in responding to a call, such as a steep, winding driveway. So, it's a really good safety option. It doesn't take long at all, and the firefighters, whoever comes, won't be in the house. They'll just have a look at your property and access to your home and outbuildings. A couple of dates to note as far as the Metchosin Senior Association and the Resource Center. May 17th, nurse practitioner Jeanette McMillan is going to talk about vaccines appropriate for seniors. May 18th, there's a presentation on spring birds with Anne Nightingale. And June 3rd is the annual Parisian Cafe. So there's more information on that on their website or by calling the Seniors Resource Center. All right, that's my agenda here. So now I'll move on to the Metchosin School Facility Use Policy and Agreement. Now this is, as Mr. Smurfit mentioned, is just really a starting point. There's so many groups and people interested and very excited about about booking the gym. So these documents will provide a starting point. We'll take the comments from council on it and the input from community members, and which are certainly be welcome, and revise it as needed. We just needed a basis to start with, and then we'll fine tune it and make it more Metchosin friendly, which it needs. I don't really think we need to start telling them what kind of food they can serve either. So, and the CAO and I will get together and go over it and bring it back. Some of the points I had were on page 7, sustaining users. I think that really needs to include community groups, as there's music group, such as music groups or theater groups. They might request regular times and not just sports groups. The single users should also include community groups. On page 8. Definitions for sustaining and single users, again, should also include other community groups, sports. On page 9, it seems like the facility use agreement should really be specific that it's for commercial renters. And there's just various ones. So, and there's an area under license to use, it says January 21st to February 3rd, so obviously that is just from an old agreement. I think the agreement needs to be simplified a lot for smaller gatherings, and possibly we can check with the agreements used by the community house and the community hall. Parking throughout the documents, it talks about a charge for parking in various locations, but I really can't quite see how that's going to be managed. Like, I'm going to stand out there and count cars or keep other people out, or how that would work for that. On page 17, it talks about being affected by a strike or lockout of West Shore Parks and Recreation staff, so you probably don't need that one. And the same page, 10.2, said the licensee will provide all sound equipment, but in the facility we do have sound equipment, which is available for rent. On page 21. Just charging people to use a few chairs and tables for a meeting seems excessive. Choir practice, for example, would wind up being quite expensive if they had to pay for chairs for the group. But in general, I think non-profit groups deserve more of a break. Most of them include volunteers who already put a lot of hours in to support the community. And for casual users, possible to just have a waiver agreement for the insurance. Because again, if you just want to have a drop-in game of basketball, the whole insurance makes that very prohibitive. So I'd like to get some comments from council on what you guys think. Okay, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. I actually read this a couple different times. Each time I came up with new things, and I appreciate that it actually has draft written right through it, because it is quite an extensive document, and I know the root of it and some of the input that people have had already to get to where it is, so I do appreciate the time and energy that went into that. You've already mentioned a couple of things that I had thought about as well, so I won't repeat them. We'll just start with on page section 3, obligations of the licensee, 3.1. The licensee must pay all salaries, wages, fees, and commission of all personnel employed by it. My only question is will we have a fee structure of who those salaries are? Like, it would be whatever department we have, whether it's people that mow the fields or have to remediate those if we're renting out the field, or if it's renting out the gymnasium, cleaning up in the parking lot, those kinds of things. So just wondering how that might work in the future. I don't expect an answer today. These are just things I'm thinking about. 3.12, the licensee shall comply with all federal, provincial, municipal laws, etc. And when I was reading this, it was after reading Councillor Shukin's agenda where we had talked about mild zero, so the first thing that came to mind was alcohol, but that's addressed a little bit later in this document. But the other thing that I would like us to consider is with that other bylaws and lawful requirements is a no smoking in the building, and if we provide anything on the outside of the building. That seems to be a commonplace in the CRD now with smoking regulations that came in the early 90s. And have changed a little bit over time. I certainly did notice the specific menu thing from the food and beverage, and knowing where this document originated, I do understand that there are commercial kitchens in that facility, so these are just little things that just need to get edited. 4.2 on page 14, liquor sales complies with the district's alcohol use policy. So we heard in the last committee meeting that we don't have an alcohol use policy, so I need clarification of do we or don't we, and if we don't, then obviously we need to see that or design one. And then there's just some other typographical ones. Page 15, ticket passes 6.2, this, assuming this is performances of some sort, who is going to manage that is more my question. So a future delegation to an employee. On page 16, section 9.2, in the opinion of the code team, a threat of arson, bombing, or other violence. I'm assuming code team is something that the fire chief would be able to explain to us, or the interim CAO. I've not heard the term, I think I understand what the term is, but a definition of that, I've not heard of it used in Metchosin. Did notice on page 17 about West Shore Parks and Recreation, which is part of where this document, I'm certain that it originated. And then fast forward to page 21 about the facility rates. I have great appreciation of the fact that there is a two-tier, recognizing commercial and non-commercial. Going down to where there's some more logistics that probably need to be worked out with this as. But looking at the bottom portion, I'm just wondering if maybe some of those costs are a little bit too low. My main concern is we actually cover our costs, because they're still going to have heat, light, and general maintenance, washrooms to clean, that sort of stuff. So I understand, you know, giving a break to residents that use it all the time and stuff, but right now, the residents or the taxpayers of the community are actually subsidizing the cost of this building. So we do need to cover our costs, so I think we need to consider what the costs really are to maintain this facility. What else have we got here? Yeah, so I made a note to myself, you know, the janitorial, the cleaning of the building, the lights, the heat, that sort of stuff. And then on page 23, where it says equipment required, in one of the pinks from Ms. Voigt, she has some very good ideas in here and some thought-provoking mechanisms as what we could probably put into this document. Suggests a locker maybe for some of the users that would be there often, whether it's a badminton or whatever, pickleball, floor hockey, that sort of thing, and do have a space for them to be able to lock this up. So those are things that we would need to think about. The line item underneath the equipment required where it says school field parking lot, I guess my question is, we've talked about the school field being used as a parking lot, and in the drier weather at least, I'm not talking about turning it into a parking lot. So would that be the space that you rented, or would it be the school parking lot, the asphalt out front of it, the tarmac that's already existing there? So roadside of the chain link. So just trying to figure out which side of that fence are we actually talking. So maybe it's grass field, tarmac, I don't know. Those are just a couple of things that I came up with. And so otherwise, I think there's a great deal of work has been done, and starting to fine tune it. So I do appreciate the time and energy that staff and I know Councillor Epp has had some input on it, and a few others, so thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Councillor Gray?
I can jump in. Again, thanks to the work by staff. It's a large package, lots of moving parts, and also for the Carol Voigt's correspondence. So I just wanted to focus my comments on the purpose and the allocation of the guiding principles. The contract should follow that. So, and I'm thinking about the management and operations plan for the old school that we're planning to work on that may inform this going down the line. But with respect to the district administration, I get the idea that we need rental rates for the fields and the parking lots, but I would recommend that rate structure be held separately from the rental agreements at the school for the gym. In other words, when we hear about the fields being rented, that's really event parking, like Metchosin Day, the special event with the Bruce Summers car event, and maybe Maker's Market, that sort of thing. But I think those issues should come to council. But there needs to be a rate structure that is approved for the district to work with on that, so we know what we're doing. But I would remove it from rental because I don't see it as being part of the rental agreements. When I look at the document now, and no criticism of it, but we could hand this over to I guess it's Instinct Training who's managing things now, and quite legitimately he could rent out the entire year to commercial users with little opportunity for community groups. So I think we need to, lay out in our principles what's the object of the school here. What are we doing? So my purpose would be to maximize community use of the facility that it owns. So it's largely what we want to do is have the school used by people in the community. My view would be it's a facility. It's the use of facility that's important, not making money. And I'm with Councillor Donaldson, at least to cover costs, but we don't have any other purpose really in making money. That could mean that it's empty at times, not rented, which would be fine. So I'm interested in things like promoting community social activities, lectures, theatre and music, community sports, physical activity and health, organized leagues, practices, pickup games, that kind of thing in terms of our principles and what we want to do, have the room available for. A community shelter in the event of an emergency, although it's not earthquake resilient, we know that. And then there's been some mention of weddings and funerals and that sort of thing. But then you get into different rules about damage and cleanup and hours. And it can be difficult if you don't know who the renters are. That can put you in an awkward position because, of course, unlike other facilities, we won't have a caretaker there to keep an eye on things or help out in the event of a problem. So then in terms of the actual principles, I'm thinking about community first, listing the community groups perhaps. We have them listed on our website in different places. Like who are the bona fide community groups. Unknown renters, well, that's a little bit different, and we'll have to just sort of sort out if somebody just puts a name and says they'd like to rent, what do we do about that? A clear rate structure, operating hours, is a daily rate from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. What about multi-day rentals or weekend rentals with specified hours? I'm thinking that we don't want to promote alcohol at events particularly, so I'd take it out of the standard contract. But obviously when people want alcohol there, then they need to get a special event permit. It needs to be approved by the district, so we have a handle on that. And perhaps that would be a clause that would go in when people have a special event permit. I think we need to finalize our district alcohol policy, including the hours and users and that sort of thing. I'm not that interested in commercial users being permitted to have alcohol use. We don't really need a party zone in downtown Metchosin. And then reducing the liability for the district, clear processes, regular and documented maintenance, co-insured on any liability insurance. And then on specific days like New Year's and Halloween, those particular days, we need to know who the renters are. I don't suggest we just accept a renter who phones and asks to rent on those particular days. There's mention of merchandise sales with profits retained by renters. If that's happening, then non-profit or not, they should probably be paying commercial rental rates. Storage space for sports equipment comes up in Carol Voigt's letter. Promoting recycling comes up in the document. I think that's a good idea. Those are just a few thoughts. Oh, one other, just a point that we need to decide on at some point, are we allowing high heels in the gym? So I know from experience in other rental halls, Metchosin Hall, but other ones I've been involved in redoing floors. Once the high heel come in, then the floor it changes dramatically. So that's just a choice we make. It's neither here nor there, just whatever people want to do, but it will change the floor remarkably. And I had a question for Councillor Epp about basketball hoops. Are they on the way? Are they coming? They probably are. I don't know. Maybe they're up.
No, type of thing isn't included in the grant, so that's something that, you know, hopefully we can, I mean, my hope that is we can have some fundraising events to add, you know, the things like basketball hoops and any other things that we need going down the road.
Great. I'm not so hot at basketball, but I just thought I'd check in. And then the other would be things like floor hockey nets, other sort of equipment that might be standardized. But super. That sounds great. So I see there's some work to do. Just want to offer those comments. And they're sort of more general, overarching. There are, of course, the clauses that Councillor Donaldson mentioned and the ones you've pointed out as well.
Great. Thank you. Mary Little?
Yeah, I think this is a great starting point, so I thank the staff for developing the facility allocation and use policy and the facility use agreement. I agree that some of the information here can be deleted because it's not as applicable to Metchosin, and that's easy enough from the comments that have been made. I think it's a really good idea to make this a no smoking on the premises, on all the premises, as keeping in line with other facilities. I agree that it doesn't need to be necessarily a money-making venue, but it could be. If this is for, we've heard a lot that this might be a venue for weddings, but I guess it'll be up to council if it's going to be a wedding venue for people that don't wear high heels. That might be a little bit tricky, so we'll have to figure that out. But that if the rationale for the kitchen has been to provide an emergency shelter, of course, but also if we wanted to rent it out to vendors in terms of a wedding. So we're going to have to be careful what we decide this use is going to be about, because you can't really say you can have a wedding but no high heels, or take your shoes off at the door. I don't know how that'll work, but well, we can try. So there, I agree with a lot of what has been said regarding the facility rates, but I do believe that we should differentiate between community users and commercial, but I don't think we cannot afford actually to not rent this to commercial. I mean, weddings would be a commercial venture. And it does state, to Councillor Gray's assertions about the facility allocation and what our policy will be, it does state that it recognizes that the intended use of the facility is a community gathering space. And so if you want more verbiage around this being a community-centric, or it does say community gathering space for primarily community members. So I'll be in favor of if you want added information there. But it's a good document. Some of it needs to be revised, but it's a great starting point. So I thank staff for that.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor App. Just 3 brief comments. I'm wondering, like, as you look ahead to the groups who might use this, I'm wondering if this kind of allows for like block booking. So for example, the pickleball players and the like Metchosin Basketball League and Metchosin Floor Hockey League, they probably will want their days like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, noon to whatever. So and they probably want to set that up on a 6-month schedule or whatever. So does this agreement enable that? Don't need to answer that right now, but then even a deeper question is, what is the process for doing that kind of thing? And just considering the gym over the last few months being here, it's really come home to me that we not only own a recreational facility, but a performing arts center as well, and all the things that go along with that, like having potentially a say in who does the performance, as Councillor Gray was saying. Then, and also keeping rates manageable for community use, but also making the building like that, those rates sustaining. I would argue that should be the case. So again, my question is there room for block booking as we go? What's the process for that? So that's one question. Then I just throw these at you. The one thing that I was wondering about in the fee structure is whether we should have something called a septic field surcharge, just to recognize that there's a finite septic kind of resource there, that when people come in, especially performing arts groups where you might have, 100 or hundreds in the audience, so that population will, or those people will tax the system on an ongoing basis. So there might be room here to specifically address that. So, yeah.
I think that kind of would be covered though in the, increased amount for the commercial renters or events like that. Like that's part of the reason, I would think. I don't know, the CAO wants to make a comment on that, the block. We did talk about it.
Okay.
And doing this stuff on a, temporary basis, not temporary really, but that we can review it or revise it as we figure out how it's all going to work.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abt. So the driver is what is the framework for the space. So what I've heard to date is it's supposed to be a community center. If that's the vision and that the framework that the committee and council chooses, then that will determine, to Councillor Gray's point, is do we just minimize our commercial rental, therefore putting the space at risk that the community will keep continuing to subsidize the building? Or do we do a balance with, say, primarily we'll make it a community use space. However, if the commercial renters come along and have to bump community group, then do we just say, well, because you can enable the building to break even, that we will take commercial renters at a time? So really my question to the committee is primarily, what is the vision, what is the framework for the space use? Because that will determine a lot of the other things that come along, primarily with the pricing as well. So just one note on the pricing is that will, I looked at the pricing for the community hall, I looked at the pricing, Councillor Donaldson, you gave me another document, so I did look at all the pricing for those other facilities, but the primary driver is what is it going to take for us to, at the minimum, break even for the space, with a caveat that we do not know what the usage or the revenue stream is going to be. So are we looking at commercial 20 times a year, or 200 days for user groups? So this is all guessing games right now, but just starting point anyways for the rate structure. So just the point, Councillor Epp on the block book, in my mind as well, are we saying as a regular user groups, can you book up to 6 months, 4 months? And what happens when, again, the commercial booking comes along? Do we as a district have the right to say you will be bumped for whatever, if that's their regular book blocking? So a lot of questions for you to ponder. It's a very complicated document and many things to ponder in terms of, because we want to make that space to be able to accommodate so many different and varied uses. So.
What do you think? Councillor Donaldson?
I like the idea of it being combined. I know that when I participate in things at the community hall, some of the ongoing ones, we do get bumped sometimes because there's a commercial event that comes in, or a wedding, or a reunion, or whatever, and I think that's okay, give enough notice to do that. I don't think it happens so frequently that it would put out any of our community groups of not playing badminton or whatever sport or that sort of thing. I know we have a great big garage door that's been left in the building, which I'm really thrilled about, because if we ever had some kind of a conference there, a mini conference where they're bringing in certain things, I don't know if it's paddle boards or wind sails or whatever, but to have that accessibility to be able to bring some things in, that was an asset I'm glad that we kept. There's lots of interest, from what I understand, to be able to use that gymnasium from commercial entities, whether it's used partially as training for different things, or I said conferences, There could be CD Saturdays there. What I don't want is for us to compete with our other business community, but be on par, like complement everything that's going on in the village, whether it's the community hall, the community house, the fields, the different sports, the different kinds of training, the businesses that are here. I think it could be, it's an asset for the vibrancy of the core, and there's been a lot of time and energy and thought already put into the gymnasium and revitalizing it, so I think that's great. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, but I know from looking at other facilities and their contracts, kitchens can be rented out as well, so it could be a fee structure for that. If it's with, weddings, you need like a warming place or refrigeration set up, usually a staging area, that sort of thing. The fact that we're actually going to be putting a commercial kitchen in, this is a little bit aside from this, but there might be an opportunity that a local catering business in Metchosin might want to.
Just to interrupt, it's not going to be a commercial kitchen.
Oh, that's changed.
No, it's never been going to be a commercial kitchen. It's going to be a place where you can have food preparation and warming, but it won't be a full scale. That's not in the budget, like it's just way too expensive. So we're going to have the capability that it may eventually be able to be, enhanced.
So I think for clarity is that commercial kitchen, the class 3, it's not a class 3 kitchen, so which means there's no deep fryers. So it is still classified as commercial, but class 2, so there'll be no deep fryers.
Exactly. Yeah. So it still could be used, yeah. There's a lot of kitchens that don't have deep fryers, but you still have proper venting, stainless steel, that sort of stuff. There's still a lot of kitchens that you can have and use for facilities like that. I don't have to have stainless steel and stuff, and they're still considered commercial.
Right, well that'd be good then.
Yeah, so that's another option.
Mayor Little?
Yeah, thanks for that. What if we're talking about what is our vision? I think that deserves a whole other conversation, and not for tonight. I think that would be a good conversation for us to have. I'm also in favor of not competing with the businesses here for the whole site. I don't think that's fair, and I think the rates should be manageable. Except for I'm not in favor of waiving the insurance. I think insurance is very important for all the groups to have, because if they don't have insurance, then the liability is on us. And I think insurance is always a really important point. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Gray?
Well, I was thinking too about the issue of commercial letting, and there's different ways to control it. I get the point that maximum income is good, but if we want to give priority, it's really, we run into trouble, I think, with the how did you phrase it, Councillor Shukin? Block bookings, those block bookings. And so I can just reflect. It's not really material to this, except to explain the way the Metchosin Hall works. Is you can get bumped for a district business, an election, or a funeral coming from Beecher Bay. The other bumping that happens is on Fridays, because Fridays people want to get married on a weekend typically, and so we let them come in on the Friday to decorate, get all ready. So then that means that the renters can choose not to be there on Friday, as a regular day, not to be on the day they could possibly be bumped. That would be the most common one, I think. At any rate, maybe one way of dealing with the commercial letting, and I'm not sure of this, but just throwing it out as an idea to ponder, is say, well, we limit it to 25% per week, or 25% per month, or 25% per year, whatever it is. The difficulty is that when I read through it, I thought, oh yeah, someone could do like a conference, and that might be 3 days. Oh shoot, that's going to bump up against the block booking. So we were in that little problem there. But if we controlled it some way, like a percentage, obviously a 25% per week is different than per month. You end up having a place or a means of supporting both block bookings and commercial renting if they go beyond. But I am aware, and I take Mayor Little's point that there's more to talk about here. We're just sort of whetting our appetite, but I do want to recognize the pressure that Min's under here to get some kind of short-term rudimentary rental contracts out so we can get some sports things started. and people would need to sign waivers for liability. And maybe we see where the commercial question goes. If there's rents that are for like multiple days, or if they just have any single-use days, presumably they can fit in without any, without a big hassle on our part. But if it turns out being week-long, then I guess that's where we say, oh, wait a minute, we already have people booked, and we'll have to develop a policy around it.
So we haven't come across that yet.
Yeah.
It's been single day, which is.
That makes it easy.
Anything else? Councillor Schick?
No, sorry, I go back to that thing about the facility sustaining itself, because if it doesn't over time, that's going to lead to trouble. And what that looks like is, so I guess I'm with Councillor Donaldson and looking at a mix, and the challenge is how to do that properly, so, yeah.
Thanks. Well, the thing is, after 6 months or a year, we'll have a lot better idea. And it's not like we can't revise what we're doing. We just need to start.
Yeah, good point.
Mary Lynn?
Yeah, and I was just wondering, has this document been given to the fire chief so she can review it as well?
No, not yet. This is just the first draft for a discussion in the committee.
Okay, so maybe after the
Okay.
second draft, the fire chief in specific can also look at it, because she'll be able to comment on that, and also her group, the firefighters, will also want to use the gymnasium, so I think the comments will be valuable.
Okay, thank you. I think that's probably it for now, and we will bring back a revised document with some tweaking. So last thing that we have here is the monthly report from the Metchosin Fire Department, the Protective Services report, and thanks to Chief Dunlop for this. It's really comprehensive. I think one of the highlights that sure stuck out was that, they must have really wowed it says 987 kids from the Souk School District in grades 4 and 5. They attended the 24th Annual Fire Safety Expo. It's the group, and it was held here in Metchosin. The group rotated between safety talks and demonstrations from Metchosin, Langford, Colwood, and Souk Fire Departments, as well as ICBC, bylaw officers, Department of National Defense, and I'm sure RCMP. So that must have been quite something. Well done for putting that all together.
Councillor, it seems like this is a new format. I don't recall seeing this before. I like it, especially the report on the number of incidents and whatnot. So,
Yeah, it's really great, and there's definitely a very busy department. Lots going on all the time. And we have correspondence, has been mentioned, from Carol Voigt, and we will take that into consideration when we're looking at the new revised agreement. Other than that, I think I'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Thank you. Adjourned.